we want to go on to our third speaker, Professor Nobuo KAZASHI, whom we know here, many of us know him here. I met Professor KAZASHI in USA as he finished his PhD in philosophy at Yale University. And after that, he moved to Japan. And he is now, after so many years, a professor emeritus from Kobe University. Kobe is not far from here. And he is now active in the City University of Hiroshima. Hiroshima City University, I guess is the name. And he is one of the few Japanese professors that I know of in philosophy who had been very active, politically engaged. And he has books published and co-edited volumes on the unending Iraq war, questioning a news from Fukushima, that was published in 2013, Japanese. He has also co-edited A World Without Uranium Weapons. That is also from the critique of the uranium weapons that he has been involved with. That was 2008. That's also published in Japanese, but he had also been active in the United States and also in Iraq as well. Okay, without further ado, he's going to talk about the politics of post-war manga. Okay, please.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Yoko-san, for a wonderful and very generous introduction. And very nice seeing you, everybody. And when I was invited or asked to present something, I wondered what I can contribute in relation to other talks. And I thought about it a little bit, and this is what I came up. And I hope you will see some, if a bit indirect, very interesting relationship to the question of the body and also the question of the binary spatial division. Today, at first, I'd like to sort of introduce sort of a post-war Japanese manga as a part of the sort of a post-war theoretical, political, and philosophical thinking. I'd like to particularly refer to the philosopher Shunsuke Tsurumi, who studied in the US primarily. And he was one of the leading thinkers of the post-war era in Japan. In the latter part, I'd like to focus on two main manga artists, Tezuka Osamu and Mizuki Shigeru. So at first, background, I'm not sure to what extent you are aware of the concrete post-war situation in Japan. So let me go quickly. So after the defeat, there was just about 7 years of the occupation period by the US-led Allied forces. So for 7 years is not a short time. And 51, and Japan concluded the so-called San Francisco Peace Treaty. But it was a one-sided peace treaty excluding the Soviet countries. So, and there were, lots of oppositions in Japan protesting against this one-sided sort of a peace conclusion. And so the photo is one of the very famous one, and lots of young students, people making demonstrations just around the National Diet in Tokyo. And and this kind of demonstration were held particularly in around 1960 and 1970, when this US-Japan security treaty was renewed. So you may have the image that Japanese people, including the students, are relatively quiet and obedient people, but it was not the case at all. till around 1970s. And after that, a political season was over, they say, and Japan started to concentrate on economic development. That was a general sort of course I took. And so that in the post-war Japan, there were many sort of philosophical sort of thinking and also literary thinking. And I think also, and in addition to these, there were many young artists and manga artists who started making mangas. So, and in a word, I think there's a common motif question shared both by philosophers and the manga artists, and as we will see. So, and these are the three very well-known people. On the left, Marianne Masao, and I guess when you give a talk on Arendt at Kyoto University, there'll be some discussion in relation to Mariama, and there's a German translation of his work, Denken in Japan, Freiheit und Nation in Japan. And as Marianne Masao respected Hannah's work. So because they share the question of the totalitarian regime. And one was a very well-known article Mariama published the very early on after the war in 1946 is entitled The Logic and Psychology of Ultranationalism. We can see the connection between him and Arendt. And there are two English translations of his collection of articles. So when, for example, Michel Foucault came to Japan, Foucault had already read Mariama's work. So Foucault wanted to have a talk with Mariama. So I think this is, at first I thought of, giving a talk on Mariama in relation to Arendt, but I decided to focus on the question of the body and the imaginary body. And so as a philosopher today, I'd like to focus on Shunsuke Tsurumi. And he studied at Harvard, and during the war, but after the Pearl Harbor attack, he had to come back to Japan. And so he became one of the very young leaders in post-war Japan. And he left many works. And also, he's known for the sort of for organizing campaign, a civil action called Peace for Vietnam, association during the Vietnam War, so etc. But I have to go quickly today. So the point is, in relation to manga particularly, I think so. In the mind, in the understanding of Tsurumi Shunsuke, there is a close relationship with the core spirit of pragmatic thinking and manga spirit. And that is, as you know, pragmatism places emphasis on the importance of consequences. Of course, it does not mean that pragmatism, thinks lightly of principles. But also, in contrast to, for example, the famous Cartesian, I think, therefore I am, this is a very individual, deductive thinking, right? By thinking in a correct way, we must be able to reach the truth. That is an individualistic philosophical method. But basically pragmatism emphasized that humans make mistakes. So, and all our human theories are hypotheses. So they are fallible. And so what is more important is a community of inquirers, and also Tsurumi sort of highlighted pragmatism as a method to unstiffen our legitified thought. So if we just simply believe in some ideology, this is correct, you tend to exclude others who don't agree with our views, right? So basically, Tsurumi thought pragmatism can contribute to soften our sort of rigid way of looking at the world. So we can see a connection with the sort of a function of manga. And for example, Tsurumi writes this way, I quote, manga works on thinking in a somewhat different way from other modes of expression. Manga works as a stretching exercise of manga. So with this kind of sort of understanding and historical background, I'd like to start focusing on actual manga artists. One is Tezuka Osamu. I'm not sure you have seen that the lower photo is Iron Atom, the first sort of a TV animated manga made by a Japanese manga artist. And Tezuka is often called father of Japanese manga. And he made many manga works. And these people, including Tsurumi and manga artists, belong to the more or less same generation. That is to say, they were raised toward the end of the war. So it was a case also applies to the case of Tezuka Osamu. He was born near Osaka area. So these are some of the most well-known manga characters produced by Tezuka Osamu, Firebird, Blackjack, and Jungle Emperor Leo. And particularly in the case of the Jungle Emperor Leo, you will sense the sort of influence of the Walt Disney type of animations. And if you look at the upper side, what is most interesting is that Tezuka Osamu actually has a doctor's license, and he studied in the Department of Medicine. So he's very well versed in natural sciences too, and he experienced the air raids towards the end of the war and in Osaka. So, for example, let us look at only the underlined part. So, as I looked at it, I felt that I was not in the real world. Maybe I was dreaming, or that I had already died and was in hell. It was such a terrifying sight. So Tezuka was in his teens. So this was a starting point for his thinking. And but when Japan was accepted its defeat, the actually, people say that lots of people felt a sense of liberation, actually, liberation from the times of the war. And it was the case also for Tezuka. And so this is taken from his biography, autobiography. And for example, he writes in the block, in the second paragraph, it was the first time I thought to myself, oh, I am so glad to be alive. I was so happy to be alive. I still remember that experience vividly. That is what has sustained me in drawing manga for the past 40 years. I draw a variety of things in my manga, but the basic theme is the same. In other words, the emotion of being alive and the appreciation of life comes out naturally without conscious thought. And but another sort of characteristic I'd like to highlight is his experience under the U.S. occupation, and this is a well-known sort of photo to us Japanese, and American General MacArthur, the arriving in Japan, is in August 1945 with his troops, and the occupation army came, and so a lot of conflicts happened, and there was a personal conflict too. And in the case of Tezuka recollects that when he was walking around, and a few drunken American soldiers came and asked to him that, and one of them asked small Tezuka, but Tezuka could not understand. So to my chagrin, to my regret, I had no idea what he was saying, what the US soldier was saying. So Tezuka asked back, what? So I could only ask back. Then right away, I was punched hard and slammed to the ground. So, and he writes, Tezuka says, this unpleasant traumatic memory has stubbornly stayed with him, and its parodies have naturally appeared frequently in my manga themes. Conflict between, we may be able to find some connection to Johanna's talk. Conflicts between Earthlings, aliens, troubles between different races, misunderstandings between humans and animals, and tragedies between robots and humans. These are the themes of Atom. So that actually, so the robot Atom gives us the image of a very positive, powerful sort of a robot, and with AI capability, and actually with a nuclear power plant inside his body. But actually, in the mind of Tezuka himself, it was a symbol of the conflict between these two different sort of directions. So there's one of the central topic theme is robots and the imaginary bodies. Of course, nowadays, only after several decades, the robots are not imaginary at all today. It's real. But for example, in 1950, Tezuka writes, for example, that robots which have characters and abilities superior to humans are created, shouldn't humans, on their part, concede their position to them and look for a way to live more modestly? So Tezuka's works pose such doubts, reaching the ground of human ethics to the boys living after the defeat. This is a philosopher Tsurumi's remark. So and the Tsurumi goes on. Here's a clue to relativize human existence, including its ethics, political ideology, and aesthetic sense. The attitude of overworking the machine will eventually come back to those who overwork it, as a prediction that human beings themselves will be dehumanized is presented here. I think this is quite a very, has a very haunting sort of predictive sort of image and about what's going on now in the world regarding the human robot AI relationship. And so this is one of the scenes from Atom. And Atom actually shouts, "Robots are not slaves. We are free even now." And so this is a sort of a very core features of the Tezuka Osamu as an artist and some of his works. But I'd like to make a contrast, and actually you will be more interested in another sort of important artist, Mizuki Shigeru. And the Mizuki Shigeru, I'm not sure maybe you're not familiar with, he made lots of manga works on sort of ghost and supernatural beings and all other soldiers who fought during the war. And it's a very bizarre characters. But as you see that quite recently, I think, his works are gaining international recognition in France, for example, in the US too. So I think there's some significance related to the sort of importance hidden in his works. And just let me, and also, so one point I think, tomorrow, are you going to Iset Shrine?
I don't think I will make it because we have lots of suitcase.
Oh, you lost?
I mean, yeah.
Suitcase. No, we have lots of. No, we didn't lose the suitcase, but we have lots of suitcases.
Oh, okay. Okay. And in any case, and actually, there's another very important, more archaic Shintoist shrine in the place called Izumo, and Mizuki Shigeru was born near this area. And so he was exposed to the myth, Shintoist myth and folklores in this area. And I think we saw the Shimenawa,
Yeah.
the I talked about. Yeah. And also another point is that when the war started, and not only there are lots of young Japanese students and people who really, of course, naturally became worried about going to the front, and so Mizuki was one of the young people who started reading many books, philosophy and literature. And interestingly, I find it surprising. And the young Mizuki was attracted most to Eckermann's conversation with Goethe. And in addition to the many books he read, and he says he brought 3-volume paperbacks to the Southern Pacific. And so And this is a very important part. So can I read it out in his own words? When I was a boy, I became depressed because the war started. I hated going to war. I was scared of dying. The thought of going before long to a war zone with bullets flying around impelled me, urged me to inquire what is life. I read a lot of books. I read Nietzsche, Kant, and Schopenhauer, as many students studying at the Kyoto Imperial University at that time. I read a lot of books, and I also picked up a lot of novels. In particular, Eckermann's Conversation with Goethe was full of standards for living. I admired Goethe for his broad view of the world. I was sincerely impressed by his sagacity. I never did figure out what life was, but I was dazzled by the radiance of living itself and painfully felt that I did not want to die. When I joined, and actually, he says, Mizuki memorized both Conversation with Goethe, also the New Testament. And it does not mean that Mizuki was attracted to Christianity as a faith, but Mizuki says he was really impressed by Jesus Christ as a person. So it applies to the case of Goethe too. Not Goethe's works, but Goethe as a person. So, but another point that there's a essay written by Mizuki, and the title is A Father's War Chronicles, told to his daughter. And it has a subtitle, A Tale of Little Heaven. So that means it was a terrible, absurd, crazy war, battlefield. But Mizuki was really impressed by the life there. So let me read the last one. At the front, the southern stars appear clear and close. Strange insects burst, and the world looked like something out of the Arabian Nights. The next day, I passed through kilometers of paths covered with flower-like leaves. I had the illusion that I was approaching paradise. You may call it very clearly sort of Orientalist sort of description or attitude, but in any case, this was a fact, his experience. So, for example, he left this kind of, paintings, and he writes, it was an ordinary afternoon, just like when I used to see the sea in the countryside in Japan. Why should only humans grope around while plants and stones live peacefully? Like trees and stones, human beings should just stay quiet, not trying to take other countries. I walked along thinking this. They go on. What on earth is civilization? I was bullied. Mizuki was the lowest in rank, so he was constantly beaten by his senior officers. And whenever something happened, he was told, die, because the emperor orders it. Actually, this is exactly what a philosopher, a scholar, Maria Masao, described in terms of system of irresponsibility. And I feel that Mizuki really experienced it in a much, much direct way. And let me try to finish. Yeah. And actually, Mizuki lost his left arm in combat, and he was really tempted to stay on the island, but his comrades persuaded him to go back to Japan together. So he decided to come back, and he started work as a artist. He had a very difficult, poor years, but he started produced a manga series called Kitaro of the Graveyard. Kitaro, the sound is the same as a philosopher Nishida Kitaro, but in different Chinese characters. And this is one of his well-known manga character. And let me conclude. And there are some interesting, very comments made on him, but let me finish by pointing out that Tezuka Osamu was also attracted to Goethe, and particularly Goethe's work, Faust. And Tezuka even made 3 adaptations based on Faust early on in 1950, and his last incomplete work, he could not finish at hospital, was also Faust. And I think this is makes a very clear contrast with Mizuki's case. And of course, needs to say, and Tezuka's Faust is an adaptation of original. For example, it is in 1970, Japan is amid the rapid economic growth, and a professor, an authority on body engineering, is in despair because he has not succeeded in unlocking the secret of life, despite his lifelong research. Then Mephisto, a female devil, appears to seduce him into making a contract with her. He would be able to become young again and obtain a new life only in exchange for his life. And but this is the last. But for Mizuki, it was not fast. Mizuki writes that he could not understand Goethe's Faust, although he was really attracted to conversation with Goethe. And also in the case of Mizuki, the last book Mizuki made was on Goethe, but on a different aspect of Goethe. And let me finish by reading out 3 of Goethe's sayings Mizuki really cherished. And for example, the highest that humans can attain is to feel wonder. Only if one knows to be content with moderation and be at peace with one's lot in life. Chisoku, this is the name of the publisher, Professor Heidegger, started. And also, it can be connected to Johanna, so the last sentence I'd like to read. This is a Goethe saying, in translation. I often feel like being born as a so-called savage on a South Sea island in order to genuinely enjoy just once a human life without any falsehood. And so I'm not sure at the moment what kind of connection theoretically I can make preceding talks, but I wanted to present something related to Japan and also your country. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.